I am determined to see things differently. I am determined to see things differently. That is lesson 21 from the workbook of A Course in Miracles. Today we're going to read the notes of Ken Wapnick from his book series. These are 7 volumes. Journey through the workbook of A Course in Miracles. Oops, this is still volume 1, yeah. Ooh, that's lessons 1 through 60. They are the notes of Ken Wapnick breaking down each of the lessons from the workbook, the 365 lessons from A Course in Miracles workbook. And if you are a student, welcome. I feel you. My heart goes out to you. If you know, you know. These lessons aren't so easy to understand on your own, although I think that if you just stick with it, you start to understand it. But these are very helpful. These have helped me enormously reading the teachings of Ken Wapnick to break it down in a way that I can understand. So let's dive in. Lesson 21, I am determined to see things differently. This lesson directly follows from the preceding one, lesson 20, I'm determined to see. It is interesting to note that Jesus talks specifically about anger in this lesson, even though it is not reflected in the title at all. He illustrates the idea that there is no hierarchy of illusions by having us realize that anger consists of a wide range of thoughts. Yes, it does. We begin with the specific instructions, which usually come at the end of the lesson. The idea for today is obviously a continuation and extension of the preceding one. This time, however, specific mind-searching periods are necessary in addition to applying the idea of particular situations as they may arise. 5 practice periods are urged, allowing a full minute for each. In the practice periods, begin by repeating the idea to yourself. I am determined to see things differently. Then close your eyes and search your mind carefully for situations past, present, or anticipated that arouse anger in you. This is the mind searching we had discussed earlier, and now Jesus wants us to focus specifically on our anger. The problem is that we cannot be determined to see things differently at the same time we are angry, because our anger says, I am determined to see things the way I have always seen them. My perception is right. Isn't that the truth? So I'm determined to see things differently. This is such a beautiful idea, one that I use minute to minute at times. I am willing to see things differently. I am willing to see this differently. I am willing to see him differently. I am willing to see her differently. I am willing to see this differently. Whatever it is, if in any way I am perturbed, if in any way I am activated, triggered, dysregulated, whatever the situation, the thing, the thought, the idea popping up from the past, something I'm dealing with right now, or something I'm anticipating or nervous or fearful about or dreading, simply by saying, I'm willing to see this differently. I don't right now, and something that I joke, but it's the truth. At times when I think about this, something's bothering me. For example, I've had people in the past who just totally trigger me, right? There's people that just rub us the wrong way for whatever reason, and they always get under our skin. And so there was somebody I knew for years, and I kept saying, I'm willing to see him differently. I don't right now, but I'm willing. I'm willing to see him differently. I am willing to see him differently. And at times when I was really, really bothered, hurt, irritated, upset, angry, totally in judgment, thinking that this person was just so wrong, so just whatever, and I was really worked up, and I would think of that phrase, I'm willing to see him differently, there was a part of me that wasn't ready even for that. I said, no, I'm not even willing. I'm not. And I just admit that. I bring it to Jesus and I say, I'm really, really upset right now. So I would twice remove it. I'm willing to be willing to see him differently. Or even if you are so in a point, your willingness is everything. I'm willing to be willing, to be willing, to be willing, maybe willing in the future to see this differently. But if we just, in our moment of crisis, internal discomfort, anger, hurt, outrage, but anger specifically. I'm willing to see this differently, but even more, stronger words. I'm determined to see things differently. I'm determined to see this differently. Whatever just happened, whatever this is, I'm determined to see this differently. So it's a step past even willingness. And being gentle with ourselves. Because again, as A Course in Miracles says, Jesus knows this is not easy for our thought system, how we have been programmed and trained and just habitually thinking with the thought system of the ego, which is based totally on judgment and hate and anger. So it says, the problem is that we cannot be determined to see things differently when we're angry. Because when we're angry, we're saying, I'm determined to see things the way I have always seen them. My perception is right and Jesus is wrong, and I will go to my death to prove it. We see that play out all the time in the social arenas about how angry people are, and they will fight to the literal death. They will kill people for it because they are unwilling to even consider that there's another way, a loving way, a peaceful way. Jesus is now helping us realize that before we can say, I am determined to see differently, we have to understand our thoughts, which is why he asks us to get in touch with them. In other words, vision can come only by undoing our thoughts of anger. So we can't say, take away my anger, because anger is the effect. What's the cause? Our thoughts. We have to say, help me with the thoughts that I'm having that's creating this anger. What am I thinking that's creating this anger? I can't just have you take away the effect. That is, I was just reading, I think it's chapter 2, Cause and Effect, that Jesus says he cannot interfere with the effects. Like he can't take away our fear. We can't pray, please take this fear away from me. Please take this anger away from me. Because that is messing with cause and effect. Because the fear is not the problem. It's a cause. It's an effect. The cause is our thought. So what is a better way to ask, and really the only way he can help us, is help me to see my thoughts. What thoughts are causing this anger? What thoughts are causing this fear, for example? So before we say I'm determined to see differently, we have to understand our thoughts. What's going on in our thoughts that is making us angry? So understanding our thoughts, which is why he asks us to get in touch with our thoughts, really start to notice. And they're not always conscious, right? It's like, I'm so angry. Well, what are you thinking? I'm not even thinking. I'm not thinking anything. I'm just angry. Well, if you just, for a moment, closed your eyes and felt where the anger is in your body, like this is classic parts work in therapy. Where do you feel that anger? Do you feel it as a hot fire in your chest, in your belly? Do you feel it in your hands? Do you want to hit something? Where is this anger, this energy that you can feel in your body? Get in touch with it. Where is this anger? If there, some people say it's all over my body, but where is it the strongest? Just find it and feel it. Anger doesn't feel good. It's hot. It's uncomfortable. And just say, if this anger could speak, what would it say? And it'll start talking to you. Get in touch with your thoughts. In other words, vision can come only by undoing our thoughts of anger or correcting our mistaken decision for the ego. Saying no to the ego is the way to learning to see. The anger may take the form of any reaction ranging from mild irritation to rage. The degree of the emotion you experience does not matter. You will become increasingly aware that a slight twinge of annoyance is nothing but a veil drawn over intense fury. This is when we think that there are levels to this. It's either fear or love. We are either in a thought system of fear and the ego, or we are in the thought system of love with the Holy Spirit. And so there's kind of well, at least I'm not it's we think it's a spectrum and we can experience it like that, but it's one or the other. It's very black and white. Either we are with the thought system of the ego, which we will never win. We will always be in hell. Or with the Holy Spirit, love, healing, true reality. Because remember, the ego is just an illusion, by the way, that we believe. So it says, You will become increasingly aware that a slight twinge of annoyance is nothing but a veil drawn over intense fury. So you might be mildly annoyed, and then you see somebody who is like off the handles with rage, and you're like, well, at least I'm not that mad. Your twinge of annoyance is the same internally to your spirit as this intense fury. And so it's, yeah, there's many examples, and we used it before. Didn't it say like a stub toe is the same as like a cancer diagnosis or something? I know it's a totally opposite in the thought system that we're used to, but to our mind, it's the same sort of threat. So this last line is the one I mentioned earlier in lesson 16, one of the more famous lines in A Course in Miracles. It is so important, in fact, that Jesus virtually repeats it in the Manual for Teachers, that everything is the same. So when we start to realize that the slight twinge of annoyance is no different than intense fury, he says everything is the same. Forms, the way it comes out, whether you're yelling and angry and shooting people or you're just judging someone silently in your head. He says forms vary, but their content remains the same. Anger is anger is anger is anger. Not at peace is not at peace. Forms vary, but their content remains the same, as this lesson clearly explains. Statements such as these illustrate just how radical this course is. That's so important. And it is radical. This is wild. This whole Course in Miracles is wild. That's why a lot of people don't like it. I sure didn't. Forms vary, but their content remains the same, as this lesson clearly explains. So this is, again, that concept of form versus content. We're so obsessed with the forms, but the content is really where everything is created. The meaning, the content. So statements such as these illustrate just how radical this course is. For all intents and purposes, it invalidates all our experiences and beliefs. Try, therefore, not to let the little thoughts of anger escape you in the practice periods. Remember that you do not really recognize what arouses anger in you, and nothing that you believe in this connection means anything. So when we are doing this lesson, say you're on lesson 21, I'm determined to see things differently, and we're focused on thinking about the things that make us mad, and we want to see it differently. He says, don't think that the little teeny tiny annoyances are not a big deal. He says, pay attention. Don't let the little thoughts of anger escape you during your practice periods. We think that what arouses anger in us is what people do or fail to do. But what truly arouses our anger is the need to project responsibility for the separation. Again, the separation that we are separate from God and everyone. But true reality is we are all one. We never left the presence, the wholeness of God. We think that what pisses us off is what people do, something that we don't agree with, or what they don't do. They're not meeting our needs and they're not behaving in a way that we think they should. But what truly pisses us off is the need to project the responsibility for the separation. Then he says, or it says, it's a quote from the Course, anger always involves projection of separation, which must ultimately be accepted as one's own responsibility rather than being blamed on others. So it's our own error of thought that we could be separate, that we are separate. Believing in this illusion, this lie that I'm a separate body, you're a separate body, we're all separate. This is mine, that's yours, instead of true oneness. If you've been on any spiritual path, you know the concept of like wholeness, oneness, we're all one, namaste, beauty, rainbows and butterflies. But like the Course is really sharing with us the thought system that'll actually get that experience, bring that experience upon us. And that's not easy, because I'm gonna tell you right now, none of us want to be one. None of us. That's the goal. There might be moments, but like, think about the person you hate the most. Do you want to be one with them? I don't think so. Think about the groups of people that you think are the most atrocious demons, the devil come back, what's it called? the Antichrist, all that stuff. Do you want to share a meal and be one and loving with them? I'm sure you don't. And that is very threatening to our ego because we don't want to accept. We're very exclusive. I mean, look at all the religions. It's like, if you don't believe how we believe, you're going to hell. We're special. You're not. We're being saved. It's ridiculous. This whole, everything here in this physical universe is based on separation and duality. It's wild. So anger always involves projection of separation, which must ultimately be accepted as one's own responsibility rather than blaming it on others. That fact is what we do not want to acknowledge. Yeah. We need to proclaim, I am not guilty of the sin of murdering God and betraying his love. Someone else is. Because that's the ultimate truth. We feel like we obliterated, ran away, like the ultimate prodigal son, but we killed our father and we ran away. And we feel really guilty. And we're just trying to make our own world over here with all of our inheritance. And again, this is not conscious. This is in our deep unconscious mind, according to A Course. So we didn't do this. We're not the bad ones. I didn't do anything wrong. They did. I'm innocent. I'm a good person. But them over there, right? We all are capable of the most atrocious things. All of us. And we think like that. And if you are unwilling to acknowledge the darkness within you, life will be very difficult. And it's until you can look at that, it's liberating. It's actual freedom. That's how I got sober. It's like if I was unwilling to look at this darkness, this pattern, this destructive pattern that would have killed me, if I was unwilling to acknowledge and look at it, I could not let it go. That's the same with the ego, what the Course is saying. If you cannot realize that you have this thought system, this twisted, vicious, murderous thought system of the ego within your mind that has nothing to do with God, you can't let it go and embrace your true oneness, your true reality. That is the thought system of God, of love, of peace, of oneness. And so I think I used right? It's like if I have this pen in my hand, say this is my anger, this is my hate, this is my guilt, unconsciously. If I am unwilling to recognize that I have this in my hand, and the Course is saying, recognize that you have this hate, this anger, these murderous, vengeful thoughts, and this guilt. And then I can help you to release it. But most people, the Course says that, and they go, I don't have any of that. This is cuckoo. And if they never acknowledge it, how can they ever let it go? That's the same with an addiction. For years. I mean, I think no one really said anything flat out like you have a problem, because on the surface, it didn't look like it. Well, at times it did, let me tell you. I knew I did. And until you're ready to look at, I have a problem. I have a problem with alcohol. But for years, no, I don't. So I could never address it because I was unwilling to look at it. But when I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, I do. I have a problem. That's the step one, acknowledging that I have the problem. And then am I willing to let it go? Now that I know it's there, I'm more willing to be able to let it go and release it and be free of it. But we first must acknowledge it. He says, the fact is that we don't want to acknowledge that we project this separation onto other people. I didn't do it. They did it. It's other people. Other people are the bad people. When I see it out there, because I put it out there from my mind, everything is a projection. When I see it out there because I put it there, I believe I am justified in getting angry. A neat trick at which we are all pretty expert. It matters not whether I am enraged or only mildly annoyed. Either way, I am saying that my well-being depends on something or someone external. In the absence of that special object, I will be upset and it will not be my fault. Like, they I think it's lesson 5 in the workbook. It says I'm never upset for the reason I think. I'm never upset for the reason I think. And then there's, I think it's in the text, it says, anger is never justified. We think we're angry because of what's happening out here, but what's happening out here is just a projection of what's happening in here. So he's saying that when we're mad at what's out here, we think it's someone else's fault out here. But really, if we pulled back the curtain, we realize, oh, what's out here is just a reflection of what's in here. I did this. And that's the hardest thing. And it's a trip because our mind doesn't work like that. And it is hard. But the more you read this, the more you understand that we are responsible for everything we think. No matter what appears out here, the way we think of it will determine our experience. So even if there is outrageous, wild, tragic things happening out here, we can still think of it in a way that does not piss us off. Is that easy? No. We'll still be normal, call the police, protect ourselves, protect our family, but we don't have to have so much hate, rage, and anger. And this is like pretty high level stuff, ultimate stuff. This is not easy. And not like throwaway statements, like, oh, why can't you just love everybody who's murdering people? No. And Jesus knows that. You will probably be tempted to dwell more on some situations or persons than on others, on the fallacious grounds that there are more obvious situations that make you mad. This is not so. It is merely an example of the belief that some forms of attack are more justified than others. For the first time, we see a specific example of the principle that there is no hierarchy of illusions. That's what I was saying earlier. Like, we think there's levels. There are no hierarchy of illusions. Jesus uses anger as the example because it is so central to the ego's thought system. Everyone walks around angry. Everyone walks around angry because everyone walks around guilty over the separation and not wanting to accept responsibility over it. Now, again, you might be listening to this if you're a newer student, or this is your first time hearing it, and say, I'm not angry, I'm peaceful, my life is fantastic. We're not talking about on this conscious level. This is unconscious. So everyone is angry because everyone is walking around with the guilt over the separation and not wanting to accept responsibility for it. Thus, again, before we can be determined to see things differently, we have to recognize and understand the interference to seeing things differently. There is something out there, whether it's our own body. Remember, your body is the outside world. We have this interference to seeing things differently because we believe there is something out there, whether it be our own body, someone else's body, that causes us pain that is not of our doing. In other words, our thoughts have no power and thus cannot cause us distress. Someone else has brought this upset about, or some disease or circumstance. We are innocent, the helpless victim of forces beyond our control. That is such a hard place to be in. I was there for the first 35 years of my life. Like, this is, and although I've grown and I've unpeeled the onion, and I will continue to, trust me, I don't, yeah, I'm nowhere near arriving. But until I am willing to understand that I am not a victim, that's another lesson. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I think that's a future lesson. I'm not a victim of my body. I'm not a victim of anybody else's body either. Ultimately, it can appear that my body is. If someone robs me and beats me up, I'm a victim of that. But who do I identify with my body? Is that who I truly am? Again, I know this is high level stuff, but we are trying to identify with who we truly are, spirit, invulnerable. Think about it as those virtual reality games where you put the headset on and you have your avatar. Say someone shoots your avatar, it's like, are you dead? No, your avatar is, like your body is, your physical piece of bag of blood and bones is, but you're not, because you're watching it in the avatar. That's kind of like this illusion, this world that we experience. And more, quantum physicists are saying that this is an illusion. This universe is just, it's a projection of our own mind. And people are like, simulation theory, and there's like this big, Wizard of Oz behind it controlling it. I don't believe that, and the Course doesn't either. But then again, that's our ego trying to blame it on someone else. There's some evil controller that's taking over the world. No, it's all us individually. I did a video the other day, and I've done many on this, but there's no end to the way the ego will blame everybody else except ourselves. And again, it's not to blame, shame, or condemn ourselves. This is an ego, which is not even real, but we believe it's real because we created it. It's the Matrix. Like, oh, the Matrix is out to get you. The Matrix is out to, take you down and, steal your freedom, and the Matrix this and that. Like, as if the Matrix is some outside force. You are the Matrix. You are creating your own Matrix. And so if you feel like you're a victim, you're also the hero. We're all of it. We do this unto ourselves, a Course says many times. We're doing this whole thing to ourselves. And that can be very enraging, especially if things aren't going well. But when you're able to take full and complete responsibility for the way you think of things, not what's happening, not what Tom, Dick, and Harry are doing. Because once you study this, you'll understand that Tom, Dick, and Harry are just projections of your own mind. That's when we can start to awaken. We are innocent, the helpless victim of forces beyond our control. That is what most people, I used to think that too, and I still can fall into that. What we think, that there's some mean God that's vengeful and testing us and doling out special, privileges to some people. The rest of the lesson repeats instructions we have seen before. As you search your mind for all the forms in which attack thoughts present themselves, hold each one in mind while you tell yourself, I am determined to see blank, name of the person, differently. So say Susan is the name. I am determined to see Susan differently. Say I had, and I'll cut this. This will be a reel I'll make. Okay. So when applying this lesson 21 from A Course in Miracles, I am determined to see things differently. We are channeling and really looking at, observing, searching our mind for the things that really piss us off. And so say Susan pissed you off. Susan is making your life a living hell, and you're angry. I am determined to see Susan differently. I am determined to see the situation with Susan differently. I am determined to see the situation that Susan embezzled $3 million from me differently. I am determined to see this whole thing differently. Try to be as specific as possible. You may, for example, focus your anger on a particular attribute of a particular person, believing that the anger is limited to this aspect. If your perception is suffering from this form of distortion, say, I am determined to see, specify the attribute, in blank, name of the person, differently. So for example, I talk a lot about, just as a therapist, people who are suffering because someone's an addict in their family. We love this person, but they are addicted to heroin. So an example would be, I am determined to see Susan's addiction differently. I am determined to see the alcoholism in Susan differently. I am determined to see the heroin addiction in Susan differently. Try to be as specific as possible in the key here. Or if someone's a jerk, or always rude, or always insulting, and we love them, but like say a family member is just insulting, like I am willing to see the insulting comments of Susan differently. So be as specific as possible. That's the key here. Our temptation will often be to gloss over the specific forms of upset of our life, unconsciously trying to deny them as the means of denying their source. Thus, our ego would get us twice, first by teaching us to deny our guilt, and then to deny its specific defense of anger. This is the double shield of oblivion Jesus describes in lesson 136. Yeah, so I love this lesson. Lesson 21, I am determined to see things differently. So if there's anything that's bothering you, specifically making you angry, what is it? Be specific. If it's a person, use their name in your exercise with this specific lesson. I am determined to see this differently, because once you see it differently, that's the miracle. That's the shift in perception from fear, which produces, of separation ultimately, that we're separate, and anger and it's their fault and I'm not willing to look at my part in any of this. I'm willing to see this differently. I am determined to see this person differently. I'm determined to see this behavior of theirs differently. Be very, very specific. I've used this so many times, and it truly is a miracle when I'm really dedicated. And it doesn't even take a lot, to be honest. Like if this is your first time through it or your 10th time through it, lesson 21, I think I went fully through the workbook only once, and it took me 7 years. It took me like 7 years. Actually, it took me like I lied. It took me like 7 years to go through the whole book, like the text. But I think it took me like, I don't even know, 2 or 3 years maybe to go through all of the lessons. She took her time. Okay, she took her time. But I was there with it. And not that I did it half-assed by any means, but I felt like I wasn't doing it right. I did all 365 lessons, and I felt like I did not do it perfect. There was times I only thought of it once in the day, but other times I was really with it. But it works. It works when you work it. It's like the 12 steps. I think this is emotional sobriety, to be honest. I always say that, the Alcoholics Anonymous is the blue book that gets people sober. This A Course in Miracles is the blue book that gets my ass like spiritually and emotionally sober. So if you are angry, if you are upset, if you want peace, because that is the goal of the Course, inner peace. If you are done with fighting, of feeling like garbage, if you're done fighting with yourself and the world and others, and you don't understand, and you're just in so much pain, and you're depressed and you're anxious, the goal is peace. And this truly does bring peace. Just stick with it. I hope you enjoyed that. I love making these videos, not only for myself, it's a selfish reason because I learn when I do this, but also I wish I had this. I found Ken Wapnick really only, it was like in 2022. Yeah, I mentioned a lot. I had listened to the book Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard. What's funny enough is that like I have always felt really guilty my whole life. And everyone's like, oh, because you're Catholic or you were raised Catholic. Like, yeah, that probably has something to do with it. I think, but we all have this feeling of guilt. Like I felt really guilty for being happy, for having anything good happen. Oh, you so selfish. You're just a sinful little peasant or whatever. Or like, these people are suffering. How dare you have a nice pair of shoes when they don't even have shoes? It was just like this guilt that was so deeply embedded. And thank God I had found the Course, and like I started hearing about it through Marianne Williamson in like 2007 or 8, I think. And then I didn't actually get the book until 2010 and started reading it. And she had a lot of lectures and was very, very helpful until like 2016. And then I think it was in 2022, I was with in a therapy session with my therapist, and I was saying, God, I'm feeling so guilty. And she goes, and she knew I was a student of A Course. She goes, Carla, it's your guilt. Like it's, you got to get back on the wagon with the Course. And she said, have you ever heard of Disappearance of the Universe? And I said, no, what is that? Anyways, my life has never been the same, because it helps you realize and understand the Course in a way that I don't think anything else does. Anyways, but in that book, they recommended listening to Ken Wapnick. And then I love him so. I wish, and what's crazy is that I live close to where they, what is it? The Foundation for A Course in Miracles. The Foundation for A Course in Miracles is in Temecula, which is like 30 minutes away. I could have gone there if I would have known. I wish I would have met him in real life. I love him. He's so funny. and he like cuts to the chase. Anyways, I love, he's the most prolific writer. He has so many books. So again, if you are a student and you want to just understand it more, and you have a lot of questions, he answers so many questions. And I think you can purchase his like audios, and they have like live streams and books. It's just really a helpful companion, his teachings to the Course in Miracles. So I hope you enjoyed that. That was lesson 21, y'all. We will continue with lesson 22. It might take me 7 years to get through this 365 lessons at the pace I'm going, but I said I'd do it, and they will live forever and ever on YouTube's forever for future generations to come. So leave any comments, shares, takeaways, questions, and I'm happy to be on this journey with you. And it's a wild one, and it ain't easy, so good for you. If this is for you, you know it. If it's not, that's okay. It's not the only way. But and don't force yourself to do something that doesn't feel good, because that is, again, another form of guilt, that you have to do things in a certain way.